I gave a little synopsis of your book, but will you talk a little more about, tell me, well, not to dive right into all the tragedy in your past, but I know your husband's accident inspired you to start this amazing community. Tell me your story.
Yeah, it was I'll say frequently that I find myself here by accident, and I really actually mean that. Um, 10 years ago, I was living the regular life, and my husband was off for a bike ride, and our son was about 6 weeks away from kindergarten, and our stepdaughter was with us half time, and we literally had a golden retriever and a Subaru wagon and the whole thing. And um, we were, a lovely growing family. And I will not say that our marriage was perfect, but it was successful at the least. And one day I was going over to a friend's house for, our steak night barbecue thing. And a couple hours later, I realized I had a dozen or so missed calls and voicemails from numbers I didn't recognize. And in that time, my husband had gotten hit by a van when he was on a bicycle ride and went to the hospital. And I tried to remember how to drive and got myself to the hospital not knowing if he would be alive or not. And the injuries were so severe that a week later, all the tests said that he was just never going to come back. The injuries were unrecoverable was the word. And so I made the choice that you want your partner to make for you, which is your quality of life and end of life wishes. And I removed medical support. And not only was that annihilating, but I spent a lot of time in the hospital noticing a lot of people were there alone. A lot of people were crying in the hallways, not just because they were afraid their people were sick, but they couldn't pay the bills. And one of the things, in addition to losing your partner, is that we just suck at death in this country. We suck at having hard conversations, or we have a lot of hard conversations, but we don't have hard conversations that are generally productive sometimes. And so one of the ways I guess I project managed my grief was trying to help it suck less for other people. And so I said literally in the ICU to a friend of mine, maybe a day after being at the hospital, that I did not have my shit together. And for a college educated, native English speaker, legally married person who, considers myself, I consider myself to have a sense of agency, let's put it that way. Um, I was pretty screwed. And a lot of my friends realized that they weren't prepared if something happened either. And so, given this time now where everyone's in this kind of heightened state of unrest and uncertainty, I find that we're all, in addition to individually potentially going through hard times where somebody gets sick or anyone can still get hurt, that we're all our nervous systems are being banged at about 500 times a day, and we're collectively going through this uncertainty. And so um, it's interesting that 10 years after my husband died, I'm having kind of the same conversations, but we're doing it collectively.
Well, I mean, it's so amazing. I mean, first of all, that you took your own personal loss and turned it into something that has helped so many other people is really beautiful of you, as I'm sure you know. But I just wanted to add my 2 cents to the mix to say thank you on behalf of everybody. It's always so empowering to watch tragedy yield at least some benefits to other people, and that's amazing. How do you think your advice is applying now? Like, what can we learn from you?
Oh boy.
All right, just give me like 2 things. Like, how
Well,
should we be?
not homeschooling. I will leave that to someone else better qualified than I. Well, I think about things kind of in just like what if planning, right? And right now we're doing daily what if planning. And so if life were to go sideways, what needs to happen for 24 to 48 hours? Not only do we need to, like get groceries and have water, but get your prescriptions filled. Find out if your parents or neighbors have an extra key. Think about how life has kind of already come to a grinding halt. And if you needed to go care for someone, or if someone needed to care for you, is there an extra key? Do they have a phone list? Do they know where your prescriptions are? So just get a little bit of a state of the state. In Seattle, it's earthquake territory. And so the disaster preparedness that you do is pretty similar to what is happening now, except for now it's kind of it's a molasses disaster where a tsunami might be coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then much more long term, I kind of do this what if planning. And so my fears as a single mom with parents who live out of state who are elderly, and one of my parents is very highly at risk. If my father gets the the pandemic, it would be not good at all. So rather than having an emergency fund and a credit card set aside for flying out to the Midwest, I have to think about how I'm going to drive. I have to think about my pets. I have to think about my son. Does he come with me? Do I leave him here? Does somebody take care of him? How does that work? So kind of medium term what if planning. And I'm certainly not suggesting we all catastrophe loop and wring our hands about every single bad thing that could happen. But I find that if we think through what might happen if something happens and have an idea or two set aside, it's just less crap to worry about when things go wrong and our critical thinking sucks and we're just trying to figure out where our pants are, you know? We all have to like, a good day is pants.
A good day is pants. That's such a, you should write that article. Go write that article somewhere, or else I will.
Thank you. Because I'm like, what do I write about now?
That's what you should write about.
Yep. A good day is a pants day. Yeah. And then long term, everybody should always have their basic legal shit together. And it's kind of hard and awkward to get excited about doing your will and your living will. But a will is kind of a gateway document, really, to think about what happens when something happens long term, right? And who do you want to have guardianship of your kids? And even in today's immediate kind of urgency and exigency, who would you want to have temporary guardianship of your kids, right? If you went to the hospital or needed to go take care of someone for 2 weeks, it doesn't have to be guardianship forever. It can be this person is good for up to a month. So you can cut yourself some slack ahead of time. So there's just less time you have to be on the phone to get your like cell phone turned back on when you're just trying to be in the room with someone.
That's like so overwhelming to think about right now.
Well, it's not though. So that's the thing. You can do your stuff even though we're all 6 feet apart. So
and that's why your book is so helpful, because you'll make it easier for people to tackle this and take inspiration from you and all the rest.
Well, bite by bite, right? You just eat the elephant off your chest, bite by bite. So you guys can do your will while you're here and have your neighbors come over, and you can back 6 feet away and they can witness for you, and then you can feet up and turn it into something kind of interesting. Then have
it's a rubber glove wearing will signing party. I mean, who knew?
It could, yeah. I mean, there are other things to get more excited about, I'm sure, but it takes some of that, like, oh God, what happens stuff away, because you just know, and then you can move on to figuring out how to bake bread that isn't terrible, for example.
Right. Well, I'm sorry to have to go already, but will you please come on my podcast so we can have a conversation about the actual book, and I can go in depth and have an actual intellectual conversation with you that was not like
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for all that you do and everything.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.